History by the Hour, Episode 2, The Chernobyl Disaster. April 26th, 1986. The city of Pripyat sleeps beneath a quiet Soviet sky. Streetlights glow softly against empty roads, apartment windows remain dark, and somewhere in the distance, beyond the trees and concrete buildings, a power plant continues operating through the night. Routine, controlled, predictable. At least, that is what everyone believes. Because inside reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, a test is about to begin, not a dangerous experiment, not a reckless act in the minds of those involved, just another procedure, another overnight operation carried out by engineers who believe they understand the machine in front of them. But over the next several hours, small decisions will begin to overlap, pressure will build slowly, warnings will be ignored, and a sequence of human error, design flaws, and delayed reaction will create one of the most catastrophic industrial disasters in human history. And at first, almost no one will understand what has happened. 9 p.m., the delayed test. Hours before the disaster, the atmosphere inside the power plant feels ordinary. Workers move through corridors, beneath fluorescent lights. Control panels hum quietly. Steam flows through enormous pipes hidden behind concrete walls. And deep inside Reactor 4, preparations are underway for a safety test. The goal seems simple. Engineers want to determine whether the turbine generators can continue supplying enough electrical power during a shutdown, long enough for emergency backup systems to activate. It is not meant to be dramatic, it is meant to be procedural, but earlier delays in the electrical grid have already disrupted the schedule. The test was supposed to happen during the day. Instead, it is now being pushed into the late-night hours. And because of this delay, the experienced daytime crew has mostly left. The overnight shift remains, tired, less prepared, and operating under growing pressure to complete the test before morning. Still, no one inside the plant believes they are standing near catastrophe. Because the reactor continues operating, the lights remain on, and the system still appears stable. 11 p.m., power begins to fall. As the night deepens, reactor power begins to decrease. Slowly at first, then more aggressively than intended. Operators attempt to stabilize the system, but the reactor does not respond smoothly. Inside the control room, concern begins to grow quietly. Not panic, not yet, but tension. Because nuclear reactors are designed around balance. And balance is beginning to slip. The operators continue lowering power for the test. But at one point, reactor output drops dangerously low, far lower than planned. This should have stopped everything. It should have forced the test to be abandoned completely. But abandoning the test is not what happens. Instead, the crew attempts to recover power manually. And in doing so, they begin overriding safety systems one by one. Not because they want disaster, but because they believe the situation is still controllable. That belief will become deadly. Midnight, the reactor becomes unstable. By midnight, Reactor 4 is no longer operating in a stable condition. The core is behaving unpredictably. Power levels fluctuate. Control systems are no longer functioning within safe margins. But the test continues moving forward. Inside the control room, alarms activate intermittently. Lights flash across large Soviet control panels. Operators exchange short, controlled conversations, trying to maintain composure while managing a reactor that is becoming increasingly unstable beneath them. And still, there is hesitation to stop, because in highly controlled systems, people often trust procedure longer than instinct. The reactor is no longer behaving normally, but it is still running. And as long as it is still running, many believe it can still be corrected. 1 a.m. disabling safety systems. As preparations continue, more automatic safety protections are disabled. Emergency shutdown systems, automatic stabilizers, protective mechanisms designed specifically to prevent dangerous reactor conditions. One by one, they are reduced or bypassed in order to continue the test sequence. The reactor is now operating in conditions it was never meant to sustain safely, but inside the control room, the full danger remains invisible. Because nuclear disaster does not announce itself loudly at first, there is no fire yet, no explosion, no collapsing structure, only numbers, readings, pressure levels, steam, and human beings attempting to maintain control over something they no longer fully understand. 1:23 a.m. The test begins. At 1:23 in the morning, the test officially begins. Steam flow is reduced. The turbine starts slowing down, and almost immediately, the reactor begins reacting violently. Power surges unexpectedly. Operators scramble to respond. Control rods are inserted in an emergency attempt to shut the reactor down completely. But the reactor's design contains a fatal flaw. Instead of stabilizing the core immediately, the insertion causes a massive spike in reactivity, and within seconds, everything changes. 1:23:40 a.m. Explosion. A sudden explosion tears through reactor 4, then another, far more violent. The force blasts through concrete and steel. The reactor lid, weighing hundreds of tons, is thrown upward. The roof ruptures. Debris erupts into the night sky. And for the first time, the reactor core is exposed directly to the open air. Inside the plant, confusion overtakes the control room. Some operators refuse to believe the reactor has exploded at all because a reactor explosion feels impossible, unthinkable, something that simply cannot happen. But outside, glowing graphite blocks now burn across the rooftop beneath the open night sky, and radioactive material begins spreading into the atmosphere, silently, invisible, carried by the wind. 2 a.m. Firefighters arrive. Minutes after the explosion, firefighters begin arriving at the plant. Most of them have no understanding of what they are walking into. They believe they are responding to an electrical or industrial fire. A dangerous situation, yes, but survivable. They climb onto rooftops surrounded by burning debris. Some pick up pieces of graphite with bare hands, unaware that the material is intensely radioactive. Others stand directly beside the exposed reactor, receiving lethal radiation doses within minutes. But radiation cannot be seen, it cannot be smelled, and because of that, many continue working without fear, at least initially. 3 a.m. The first symptoms. As the hours continue, workers and firefighters begin experiencing strange physical symptoms. Metallic taste in the mouth, dizziness, nausea, burning sensations on the skin. Some begin vomiting suddenly, others grow weak without explanation. But even now, the scale of the disaster remains unclear. Inside nearby Pripyat, residents continue sleeping peacefully. No evacuation order has been issued. Children remain in their apartments. Families remain unaware that radioactive particles are already drifting through the city outside. 6 a.m. Morning without understanding. As sunlight begins rising over Pripyat, the damage becomes visible. Smoke rises from Reactor 4. Helicopters circle overhead. Military personnel begin appearing around the facility. And yet, life inside the city continues strangely normal. People walk outside, children play, buses move through the streets, because no official announcement has yet explained the truth. And without information, human beings default to routine, even in the shadow of disaster. 9 a.m. Radiation spreads across Europe. By morning, radiation is already moving far beyond the Soviet Union. Invisible particles rise into the atmosphere and begin traveling across Europe, carried by wind currents. Inside the Soviet government, officials struggle with denial, confusion, and fear of public panic. And because of this delay, valuable time disappears, time that could have reduced exposure, time that could have saved lives. But large systems often move slowly during crisis, especially systems built on secrecy. 12 p.m., the evacuation of Pripyat. More than 36 hours after the explosion, evacuation finally begins. Buses enter the city in long columns. Residents are instructed to leave temporarily. Only essentials are recommended. Documents, small bags, basic belongings. Many believe they will return within days. Most never will. As buses pull away from Pripyat, an entire city begins transforming into something frozen in time. Apartments left untouched, schools abandoned, toys remaining where children last placed them. A modern city emptied almost overnight. 3 p.m., the disaster the world could not ignore. In the hours that follow, the scale of the catastrophe becomes impossible to contain. International monitoring stations detect radiation. Foreign governments begin demanding answers. And slowly, the Soviet Union is forced to acknowledge what has occurred. The disaster at Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant will go on to reshape global conversations around nuclear energy, government secrecy, and technological risk for decades to come. But in these first hours, there is mostly confusion, fear, silence, and the invisible spread of something humanity cannot fight directly with strength or machinery alone. Only time, distance, and sacrifice.